Fazilla. Hey everybody, welcome to the next episode of Lens Logic. I'm your host Fazilla, and today I'm going to try something interesting. I know it's been quite a while since I've had like a really good guest on my show, and shout out Gareth, who was my last guest. So today I'm going to be doing a solo version, and I've been scrolling Instagram and TikTok lately, and business-wise, photography-wise, I've been getting a lot of videos that have to do with AI, and I wanted to try something today, which is I want to use AI to give me some prompts to talk about some things on this podcast. So I went ahead and typed into ChatGPT, "Hello, I need some points to discuss on my next podcast episode. Can you give me some good talking points about photography, the business of photography, marketing, etc. to discuss?" This is what we got. I haven't looked at this yet, so I'm looking at this with you guys first. The first one is talking points. It says, 1, the importance of niche photography. 2, building a photography brand. 3, the art of storytelling through photography. 4, marketing strategies for photographers. 5, client relationships and retention. 6, pricing your photography services. 7, the role of photography branding. 8, the impact of technology on photography. 9, creating a portfolio that sells. And 10, navigating legal and ethical issues in photography. Okay, well, let's get going. I hope this isn't too boring to you guys, and I'll try to keep it like as non-technical as I can, because I know a lot of people who listen to it, out of the 10, like 7 of them aren't photographers. So I'll keep it kind of basic, but the first point, the importance of niche photography. Discuss the benefits of specializing in a niche like wedding photography, product photography, etc. All right, so here's what I have to say about that. If you're a client or you're a photographer, this is a really good point to make, because basically, if you're a guy with a camera who has some general skills, and let's say you're not a guy with a camera, let's say you actually know what you're doing. When you get called by a client and say, "Hey, can you do a family photo?" And you're like, "Yeah, sure." And then the next week you get called, "Hey, can you do a headshot?" The next week, "Hey, can you do all these different types of photography?" You're ending up sort of stretching yourself across a bunch of different niches. And so the best thing to do is to find a niche that you can stick to, things that maybe stick together, and market yourself as that. I personally don't do wedding photography or any of that other stuff. I do corporate stuff for doctors, lawyers, that kind of stuff. If you listen to the podcast before, you know that. The reason I did that was because it just seemed like a natural fit, and I could get those jobs, and I was working for a marketing company. They gave me those jobs, so it just kind of fit. And so one of the things about that, specifically as a client, is you can expect the guy that you hire who is niche down in his area is going to be very familiar with your business, your brand, or whatever you're trying to get him to do, and whatever you're trying to get him or her to do. And you're going to get really great results without that person trying to have to learn what they're doing at the same time they're doing the photos. So that's always a really, really good thing for a client. 2, building a photography brand. Now, this one I can't really talk too much about because I don't really know that I did that or that I have any expertise in that. It says here, talk about the elements that make a strong photography brand, including logo design, website aesthetics, social media presence, the tone of voice in communications. No idea what any of that means. But what I can say is I got lucky. I was working for a marketing company that does legal and medical photos, and I learned, on site. And I was able to create with my own creative brain on that to make those photos even better and better, and constantly push the edge of that to give the clients what they wanted to make them and give them artistic photos. And so I guess that was my brand. And I guess it just came from a place of creativity and a place of, being passionate about what I do. I really do enjoy not sitting in an office or having to go to an office every day and see the same people. I always have different clients. I always meet new people. I'm traveling. It's so much more fun than, working with the same team over and over, to me at least. I know some people, do that, and that's totally fine. I'm not, crapping on that, but I'm just saying for me, that's what I wanted. The next one is the art of storytelling through photography. Explore how to convey powerful narratives through photos, whether it's capturing emotion in portrait photography or telling a brand story in commercial shoots. Okay, this one's kind of tough because you have a spectrum of photographers who are on the far end of being an artist, and then the other side of that is just a guy who pushes a button who creates a photo. And, you know, there's artists like Banksy who every time they make a painting, there's layers and layers and layers of communications that you get from that painting. And then there's guys who just do stock photography. And then there's guys who just do like stock photography or paint abstract things, which are just pretty images that don't necessarily really communicate much. And so, you know, depending on what area of photography you're doing, it can be expounded upon very, very deeply or very shallowly, just depending on how far you want to go. For me personally, I kind of tend to do the same stuff over and over for work, and I've found what works in those things, and I've found what clients like and what the general public like, and so I stick to that. And then I'll get outside of the box, you know, at least once every shoot to kind of create something different for that client than say the previous client, and that helps me sort of tell their story. But if you're kind of just in any art, it's really important that you think with what your communication is going to be, what you're trying to communicate. And then the whole point of art is that you're able to tell that story, you're able to say those things without being super literal. You know, the viewer or the person who's experiencing your art firsthand is going to be able to get what you're saying without, you know, you saying it literally. The next thing is marketing strategies for photographers. For me, that is a constant ongoing battle. I sit here at my desk every day and I think, what am I going to do today to get outside the box to make people notice me and to, you know, get new clients? I've seen guys on Instagram who run around in the streets in New York and they say, hi, I'm a professional photographer. Can I take your photo? And then they use a Sony, which is very forgiving, and they use a lot of presets in Lightroom, and those are very forgiving also. And they show the people, and people are like, oh my God, these are amazing. That's not really something you'd want for something commercial. You never see these guys who are actual, like, legit commercial photographers doing anything like that, just because that's like gimmicky type stuff. For me, every time I look at TikTok or Instagram to see what other photographers are doing, it's mostly stuff like that. And so I can't really follow anybody's template. I have to kind of make my own. So I've gotten a little bit creative with, you know, using social media, because I have like almost 11,000 followers, which whatever. For me, I get all of my clients to follow me on Instagram. And I don't just mean the business owners. I mean everybody who works at the client, you know, because sometimes those people will quit that client and go to another client, and maybe they have a good rapport with me. And it's really important for me to maintain that sort of communication line, if you will, with them, because, you know, you never know what's going to happen. They might see my stuff for 2 or 3 years, and then their boss one day asks them, hey, like, do you know any good photographers? And then they're like, yeah, I know Fazil. He's the best. And then I get a lead. I also very much maintain my commenting and my liking and all these things with these people on Instagram and TikTok, because you don't want people to forget about you. You don't want somebody to say, hey, there's this other photographer, Benny, who's down the street, and because they forgot who you are, they'll just choose Benny. Because a lot of times that's how it goes. These people are too busy to constantly be thinking about photography. That's not what they do. That's just something they need to do business. You know, it's like Coca-Cola, McDonald's. I say this all the time, Apple. These guys are constantly having billboards, TV commercials, putting the message in your face that, you know, hey, remember me, so that when you go to that liquor store or you go to that Quick Mart or whatever it is, you're going to go, oh, right, Coke, and then you're just going to grab one, as opposed to Pepsi or something else you can get. Talk about how to build and maintain strong relationships with clients, offering tips on communication, meeting client expectations, and encouraging repeat business. Okay, for me, I've actually had to have a bunch of my friends who are business type people, you know, have conversations with me, because this is one of the areas I think I'm weak in. I, you know, just recently decided that in my workflow, I would do a client call at the end of a project. I'm very heavy with client communication before the project and making sure everything's great. But then kind of once the photos would be done or the video to be done, I would just kind of like send it and be like, there's your stuff. And then there would be nothing. There would be no like definite termination of the project. And so I put in calling a client and just being like, hey, I just wanted to talk to you as a sort of end of the project and, you know, discuss what happened, how'd everything go, get any feedback, this kind of thing. And it kind of lets them know, oh, hey, we're done with this. And then I have a 3-month follow-up, which is like, hey, have you guys noticed any change or any difference? Has anybody commented on the content that we created? Have you noticed any pluses, minuses, that kind of thing? Because that also opens up a door to a potential next photo or video shoot. For me, I don't just do one type of thing. I do a couple different things in the same space. And so if I sell them one product, then I can go say, hey, maybe it's time to start working on this. And that helps me out. The next one is the role of photography and branding. Discuss how business can use photography to strengthen their image, from product photos to team portraits. Explain how photographers can position themselves as brand storytellers. Okay, well, I'm really working on the last part right now, which is kind of why I do this podcast, because I just try to get out there as much as I can and get people to know who I am and what I do. By the way, if you don't know who I am and you're not familiar with who I am, my website is www.fazillah.com. That's FAZILLAH.com. And you can check me out there. I will put a link in the bio wherever you're hearing this. And if you have any ideas or inspirations based on what I say for any upcoming projects, just let me know. Let's get back to the role of photography and branding. So my biggest selling point that I tell every client is, you're spending money on a website, you're spending money on advertising on Instagram or Google, and you're getting these clients who are clicking on your links that you're putting out there, and they're coming to your website, and you have these stock images, or you have the really chintzy, cheap looking images. And now the thing is if you're trying to just get eyeballs and you don't care about the quality of your eyeballs, that's totally fine. But if you have a luxury brand and you have like really chintzy or corny looking photos, people are gonna want to leave right away. They're going to know right away that like this brand is not luxury, and they're going to end up at one of your competitors' websites who has better content than you, and they're going to want to pick them because they get an overall better feeling about the brand than they do on your website. So having good photos and video for your website, so when your leads, your potential clients show up to your website, you actually have a chance at closing them before you even talk to them. I know Apple puts out there, they're marketing a lot that like professionals can use iPhones for their videography and photography. And I guess theoretically it's possibly true, but imagine going to a brand like Louis Vuitton or Prada, some luxury brand that you expect to spend a lot of money on for, the notoriety, the quality, etc. And the photos are taken with iPhone, or the videos taken with iPhone. You'll be able to tell instantaneously that's the case, and it won't read luxury at all. You'll think, oh wow, this is like some fun campy thing that they're doing. But if it's a constant thing, not just like a one-off project, I guarantee you the level of the brand in your mind will go down, and it won't seem as valuable to you. So that's a really important thing when you're considering what you're doing for your brand. If you're trying to make it a higher end luxury brand, or you're trying to catch higher end clients, you're going to want to have higher end photography and video. All right, number 8 says the impact of technology on photography. Talk about the advancements in camera technology, editing software, and even AI are changing the landscape of photography. Discuss the need for photographers to stay updated with these changes. So I am kind of an old school type person. I do use a lot of technology. I use Lightroom and I use AI within Photoshop, and I definitely use ChatGPT for my marketing purposes. But as far as photography, there's a lot of guys out there who will just take a decently expensive camera and shoot, and then use AI to make the photograph amazing in post. And they might spend hours, they might hire people from India to do it for them, but ultimately, like, there's, in my mind, a shade of fakeness in this, because humans are always looking for the human experience, and we're getting so digital to the point that, like, there's AI videos that are completely AI, and I feel that humans really actually can tell the difference, whether they consciously know it or not. I feel like deep down they do know the difference, and I believe that it's an important factor when considering your photography, because there are experts in the field who can take a beautiful image if they use lighting and great composition and they have experience. And you don't need to hire a college student who will charge you $200 or $500, but then won't get you your photos for weeks because they're spending all their time in AI land or in post-production editing these things. And then you end up with a photo that you could have spent $5 on an AI program to just generate anyways. That's kind of my stick on it. Number 9 says creating a portfolio that sells. My thing is, in my website and on my Instagram, I always try to put as much content as I can, and I don't cherry pick the content, because I don't want clients to think that my skills are better than they are. When you're a client and you go to somebody's website and they have this like beautiful smorgasbord of their content, you assume that that's what they can do on a daily basis. But a lot of times these guys cherry pick their content, and that's the best of the best. So if they've done 100 shoots, maybe they've taken the top 7 or 8 and put that on their website. And that doesn't mean that they'll be able to do that every time. That only means that 7 to 10% of the time they'll be able to do that. And you don't really want to hire somebody who can do the best work 7 to 10% of the time. You want to hire somebody who, you get a really great idea of what they can do, and want to hire them based off of the fact that most of the time they'll be able to do that. Number 10 says navigating legal and ethical issues in photography. Let's see what this says. Discuss important legal considerations for photographers such as copyright, model releases, and privacy issues, along with ethical considerations like respecting cultural sensitivities. Well, here's the thing. Everybody wants to be represented these days, no matter what race they are. So when you're doing photos, you should take that into account, pick your models or your subjects based on those things. Also, if you have an idea that's an artistic thing that has something to do with some kind of culture, you should get the right person who represents that, not somebody who doesn't. Beyond that, as a client and as a photographer, you should really do your research in terms of like what the legal basics are. You should have a contract. You should have language in that contract that protects you from getting, asked out. You should have a lawyer look at it to make sure that everything you want in there is in there. There's so many types of things. I'm not going to get too much into it because I feel like that's sort of a dot on an I or a cross of a T at the end of the sentence, as opposed to like you getting your art and your craft correct. All right, so now we're going to get into the 10 FAQs about photography. I still haven't read these yet, so let's go through. Let's just go one by one. I'm not going to read them all. Let's just go one by one and see what they say. ChatGPT, of course, number one. This is the top question that most photographers probably get from budding photographers or even from people who are enthusiasts. What camera should I buy as a beginner? This question really just grinds my gears because it comes from a place of not knowing that the camera itself doesn't actually matter as much as the skill and ability of a photographer. And I know probably some of you enthusiasts out there are going to say, oh, and they're going to scoff at that, but it's true. I have a camera that's like 6 years old and I charge full rate for my shoots and I show up and nobody ever asked me, what type of camera do you have? They just look at the photos and they go, wow, these are amazing. Occasionally I will get a person who says, wow, that's a great camera you have. And I go, oh, it is? Okay, well here, why don't you take my camera? And I hand it to them and I take the lighting off of it. And I go, you take the same photo with this great camera. And they do, and they can't do it because I've taken the lighting away. And then they realize, oh, it's not the camera, it's the lighting. And, the camera and how you set that up and everything like that compositionally is important, but it has more to do with you as a photographer than it does have to do with Canon made a good product or Nikon made a good product. Now, if you want to get a little deeper into that and say, well, I mean, does it matter? Like if you have a 15, 20, 30-year-old camera, I mean, it is going to matter. It is going to matter because consumers do see on social media and through other sites photos from newer cameras and they're going to be sharper. The color is going to be better. And so you have to have something that's, on par with that, but don't kill yourself to go out and buy a $5,000 camera if you're just starting out. Stick with something good. Handle your lighting, handle your composition, and then start upgrading from there. Number 2 says, how do I improve my photography skills? This is a great question. I don't know how to tell somebody else to do it. I'll just tell you what I did. I really wanted to shoot people and fashion and lifestyle stuff. So I literally called up any pretty girl I knew and I was like, hey, let's do a shoot. And then we would do a shoot. And then I noticed that like the photos weren't coming out great because the clothes weren't great. So I would say, okay, cool. And I would go up to brands and I would say, hey, smaller brands, like guys I'd meet on the street who had, a few hundred followers. They say, yo, send me some free stuff and I'll shoot it. And then I would take that stuff and then I would go to those same pretty girls and say, hey, do you want to do a shoot? And they'd say, yeah. So I would shoot the girl and those products. And then I would go, oh, I didn't do this. I didn't do this. This doesn't really communicate how I wanted to communicate this shot. And I would then in Lightroom go, okay, what could I have done better? And what did I do that was good? And I would take those points and make notes. And essentially, I would just do that repetitively. And I would notice to myself, like, okay, who of the girls that I shot, would be objectively considered pretty, but then who didn't photograph well? And then I started honing my eye for what you would normally call whether somebody's photogenic or not. And I could look at a person and say, okay, you're pretty, but I bet you're not going to be photogenic. And then I wouldn't shoot with those people. And I would shoot with the people who are photogenic. And then I would look at the brands and say, yeah, I want to shoot that brand because I feel like their stuff is cheap. It looks cheap on camera. And then I would just raise it up from there. And then I would learn posing, lighting, all these types of things. You kind of add all these elements in as you go along. Every time you do a shoot, you look at what you did and you learn from it. What did I do good? What did I do bad? What can I improve in the future? And that's basically the only thing you need to do. Just keep doing that over and over and over. Also, if you can get a mentor who's really good at what they do and you can learn from them, that can speed up the process very much. Or on YouTube, but you got to watch out for YouTube because there's a lot of posers on YouTube and you might learn a lot of trash content on YouTube. So just be careful with that one. Number 3 says, what are the best settings for outdoor photography? This is an absolute terrible question. Settings on cameras don't mean a lick of anything because depending on the light, depending on what you're trying to accomplish, all of those things can change. I'm not going to go into all of that right now because this is a trash question. Thanks, ChatGPT. If you really are curious about this, take your camera, get out in the street and start shooting. You'll learn the best settings right away. Number 4, how do I find clients for my photography business? Here's what I've done. I'm very passionate about what I do. I enjoy it very, very, very much. It's like, that's pretty much all I talk about besides the other like 3 or 4 interests I have in life. And so when I'm meeting people or when I'm out and they ask me, what do you do? I say I'm a photographer, and I just use all of those as business networking opportunities. You know, if you're a photographer, you can't be shy about saying that. If you want to do business with people, you can't be shy about saying that. You have to tell every single person, this is what I do. And I've heard people on the internet in comments on Instagram, you know, say that photographers make their entire personality about photography. And it's like, well, maybe they do. But the truth is, when you're a business owner, you have to make your entire life about that business, or you have to pay somebody else to do that because it's not easy out here. You know, I mean, how often do you get an ad for McDonald's? How often do you get an ad for, you know, Subway? These guys make their whole brand about advertising because they have to. That's how the world works. Number 5. What should be included in a photography contract? Okay, we already kind of covered this, but I'll say one thing specifically for me. There are 2 new things that I'm adding to my photography contract. The first thing is the use of AI. I'm adding a clause in the contract that says that you agree not to submit any of my work that we do together to AI for use. Every image that a photographer creates is owned by them unless the contract specifically states that you're turning over copyright to the client, which 99% of the time you don't. You're granting them an exclusive contract to use the images for, you know, whatever they deem necessary. In my contract, I say that you have an unlimited, I think it's an unlimited exclusive use to promote your brand of blank, whatever it's named. And I say in there that, like, if you sell this business, the license of the photos does not transfer. So if I have a plastic surgeon, Dr. Joe Blow, who sells his plastic surgery practice to Curves Inc., like, those photos do not transfer over to Curves Inc. That's what it says in the contract. So back to the AI thing, like, the clients don't have the right to submit any of my copyrighted work into AI because they don't have they cannot legally check that agreement of the terms of whatever the AI says to, like, give my copyright consent to the AI. The second thing is I should have done this a long time, is implementing a clause that says you're not allowed to edit the photos beyond what I give you. Because what that does is it leaves the ability of the person who's editing the photo, which is usually not to a professional level, to edit those photos, and then they post them and then they tag me, or people ask them, where'd you get your photography? And it makes me look like I don't know what I'm doing, when the truth is they've put all these filters, you know, Facetune, whatever it may be, on these photos, and I do not consent to that. When I send you a retouched image, that is a professional grade image that you can post anywhere. If you need something adjusted on that, you let me know and you say, hey, actually, I don't like how my face looks. Can you smooth a little bit more? And I will do that to, you know, within reason. I'm not going to make you look like a wax figure. And if you want me to, I will say, no, I'm not going to do that. But other than that, like, there will be no photography edits done on my photos besides me. Number 6 is, how do I protect my photos from being stolen online? That's something that I really don't think about because I don't do general stock type images for anybody. I do them for specific clients and they're tailored to each client. So I don't really have too much of a worry about that. I'm also good enough that, like, you know, if somebody steals a photo and is using it, it's like, I doubt they're, you know, making too much money off of it. In the very, very, you know, slim chance that, like, some huge brand, you know, siphons my photo off and starts using it for advertisement, then, you know, I just hope to the Lord that we will find that out and then I will be able to take action appropriately on that. But I don't, you know, spend a lot of my time worrying about that. Number 7 says, how do I price my photography? This is like the eternal question for photographers. You know, for me, I kind of do a sort of balance between like what I think my time is worth, how much I feel like I need to make to like do what I need to do. I know how many hours it's going to take to do a particular photo shoot, video shoot, including the talking and the meeting with the client beforehand, prepping, and then also the post-production. I know what that's going to take. So I generally have an idea. But then also I try to find out what other people are charging, because I don't want to, price myself out the sky, out of the atmosphere, but I also don't want to like be a rock bottom too. And so it's kind of a fluctuating thing, if that's a standard type project I'm doing. If it's some random thing and somebody says, hey, I have this idea, I want to do this, it's just really on a per project basis. Do I want to do something like that? Is that fun to me? Do I want to go shoot a bunch of awesome muscle cars or classic cars or exotic cars? Yes, I do. Do you want to take me on a private jet with you to Vegas and just take a bunch of content for you and make really dope photos? I want to do that. Cool. So I'll probably charge you a little bit less than if it was like, hey, can you come to the studio? Should I watermark my photos? This is a funny, good question that actually just came up. When I first started, I used to watermark my photos all the time, and I would do a nice little one on the bottom left hand side because people would just forget to like tag me or whatever, and I took that really offensively. But I also wasn't charging too much for the job, and once I started charging like a good rate, I don't care if people tag me anymore. I appreciate if they do, but they're paying me enough money to like use it however they want and not tag the photographer. Like that's kind of like a trade-off when you do a free shoot, is like tag the photographer. When people ask them, hey, who did your photography? They're going to tell them it was me. They're not going to say, oh, just some guy, right? Like they're going to be honest. So it doesn't matter if there's a watermark. I did have a client recently who, was a new client, and she doesn't have much credit with me. And so I did watermark her photos when I sent her the gallery because I didn't want her posting the photos without paying me the final price. I do a deposit system where I have a full rate that I charge for the shoot, and I say you pay me 50% up front. We do the shoot, I'll show you your gallery, you pay me the second 50%, and then you can get your photos. And I did a watermark on that to ensure that she paid me. And it's been about a week and a half and she still hasn't paid me yet. So she hasn't gotten the gallery yet. When she pays me, she'll get the full gallery without the watermark. And question number 10, how do I handle difficult clients? Well, I've done everything to handle difficult clients. I've, argued with them. I've fought with them. I've appeased them. I've zipped my lips and just done what they've said. And to me, the overall thing that I get out of working with difficult clients is they don't want to pay more than your regular clients. They want to pay less always, and they want you to do more. And so I've tried to price myself out of difficult clients. I have a call with a difficult client next week, and I know that they're going to be difficult. So I'm just going to raise the price a little bit higher because I know if I do and they're paying me a little extra, I'm going to be willing to deal with that. They trust me as a professional, so they're going to listen to me. But at the same time, there's, a difficult client tax that they're going to pay. That's the best way I can do it. If you find out a client's difficult, and they haven't paid you yet, and you decide, I'm really far down this path and you don't want to work with them, you could say, you know what, actually, I just realized that, my schedule's filling up really fast. I don't think I'm going to be able to take the shoot, but I do have a guy who I refer to. Let me give you his number. And you just pawn him off on somebody else who is a little bit lower and a little bit younger and a little bit less experienced than you, who will probably take that, who does need that client. That's the best thing I can say, honestly, because if you're to a good level where you don't need that, don't take that. And I would say even if you're to a level, unless you're like really starved or really thirsty, I wouldn't take clients like that because it just sets a bad precedent. And well, that's it. That's all ChatGPT has given me. It's time for me to get ready. I got to run out today. It's a Sunday. Hope you guys are having a great weekend, enjoying the last bits of summer. Let me know if this helped. Let me know if this was something that you can use. Let me know if there's anything else you guys want to hear. I just kind of didn't have any guests, and I needed to throw a podcast down. It's been quite a bit, and I want to get something up. It's definitely part of my marketing efforts to do this. And I appreciate you guys listening. And like I said, comment, like, subscribe. Let me know what's up. Send it to your friend if you need to. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Thank you for listening to the Fazila podcast. If you'd like to know more, you can check out my website at www.fazila.com. That's FAZILLAH.com. You can also follow me on Instagram at fazila.photo. Stay tuned for more episodes where I'll discuss photography and how it relates to life, marketing, and other subjects as well.